Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Flashback 64. Right now this is the GoldenEye podcast / some racing games. I'm Gooey, joined by McKenna.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
We're actually, this is our last GoldenEye centric episode we're gonna record for a minute. I think we have some plans to do more, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming with me.
Living in our GoldenEye Bond era.
Yeah, living
for a while.
I feel like we really actually haven't in a while now. We've just been recording
we've just
episodes.
Been talking about it, yeah.
But let's get to, we have a new guest on the show joining us for this episode. You can find his stuff. He's got both the podcast Pixels and Polygons that just launched. It's a really good podcast that touches on different little topics about video games. I enjoy it. It makes my Fridays a lot better. And he's got the wonderful 32-bit library series of books. We are joined by Darren Hupke. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the podcast, my podcast is, I like to think of it as a podcast between podcasts. I try and keep it short and sweet so that if you're on your commute and you listen to your main podcast, you don't have enough time to start a new episode, it's like, slot that one in there. It's a good B, tier type of thing to kind of fill in the rest of your time and have some fun.
Well, I agree with you except for the tier part of it, but it does fit that function for me. It comes out on Fridays and I'm always listening to pods at work. Don't tell them, but I'm listening to pods. And on Friday it comes out and I'm like, oh, I've gone through my weekly shows. Oh, here's one to get me through that last part of my day. But it is S tier, so I don't accept the B.
All right.
Maybe B is not necessarily derogatory, though,
Yeah. It's sure.
And you're also, we have declared in our last two episodes we recorded that the console wars are back on, but we're reaching across the aisle as well because you've got the 32-bit library series of books where you focus on different developers on the PlayStation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm just trying to take just different chunks of the PlayStation library, publisher by publisher, and the PS1 library is pretty large. So, I mean, they're not all great, so I don't need to cover every game, but having just different chunks from the big end publishers kind of makes it easy to have little full books like that to kind of dig through and just be nostalgic about and dive into what people loved back in the day. Beyond the Nintendo 64, obviously, which had its own awesome set of library of games, primarily by Nintendo and their close friends, but just as many great games there for sure.
Yeah, I like the chronological nature of it as well. I just like breaking it down by developer is great too, but it gives me kind of the same thing I'm trying to pay attention to while we're doing this, which is just trying to be in that moment or kind of track a trajectory. In the case of your books, where was that at within this developers stage, in their stage on the PlayStation. So I really appreciate the chronological element.
Yeah, I don't know why I've always been chronological or in an order of release. It's always been big to me. I had done a previous music podcast, and the whole gimmick there was going through album by album from different bands that my friends and I like, and we just did it in chronological order as well. So I've always been putting things lined up in release order. So when I read about your podcast and everything and about Flashback 64, it was doing it in chronological order. I was like, yep, these are my people. That's the way to do it right here.
Yeah, it's been great meeting you, getting to know you. McKenna, are you chronological type person? What's your preference?
I like doing that. I did that series with where I played through the Zelda games in release order, and I still have a few more games because that kind of went on a little break, but it's fun to see how the series develops throughout the years and the influences on future games. Sometimes I'll play one game right after another game that I didn't necessarily connect certain things with, and I was like, oh, that's kind of taking from here.
Yeah, you realize like, oh, this is where that comes from, that you might not always think about. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Darren, so you've got these books on PlayStation. You said you also enjoy the Nintendo 64 library. Like where in this, it sounds like where were you in this like era, like in the mid to late 90s? Like what were you playing on mostly?
I think I personally owned my original PlayStation. I had already had my PlayStation at this point. But my best friends who lived like less than a mile down the road, I lived in the middle of nowhere, and they had a 64, and so it was kind of like we had the best of both worlds. We'd be able to play, like we were able to play Metal Gear Solid, together because I had the PlayStation and everything. And then when the big games came out for 64, GoldenEye, like both Zeldas, all the wrestling games, like, we'd always just, slumber party at his house and everybody would come over to play. So yeah, definitely had these games in the moments, like on release, and all the late nights of frustration and fighting and entertainment definitely happened.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, for me, that's like the flip side of how the PlayStation was, where it's like that was either the neighbor kids or the cousin or whatever played the PlayStation, and I was on Nintendo. And I was always secretly a little jealous. I thought the PlayStation games seemed like way more badass. I remember one of my best friends, we worked at this little gas station when we made pizza in the gas station when I was in high school, and he was the PlayStation kid. I remember he was like, I remember like vehemently defending The Legend of Zelda from him, because he would be like, oh, you play as an elf, like, oh, that's lame.
Wow.
Like, he was like, yeah, he said some other words too, but it was like, I was like very, self-conscious about it. Almost, I was persecuted actually for it. But
well, I mean, like the timeless nature of some of the Nintendo 64 games designs, like you can't go back and play some of the original PlayStation games the same. They don't hold up as well, I would think, than the Nintendo 64. Yes, I mean, like kind of muddier textures and like memory limitations and things, but like there are still versions of the Nintendo 64 games, like those recompiled things that are rolling out right now for like hardcore folks. Like they're taking just those original assets and able to like, still make them feel and appear like modern and super entertaining. People aren't doing the same thing with Siphon Filter 1 or, Jet Moto. Like those games are just lost to time because they're like, yeah, they're okay then. Like I think like Sony always took chances on random genres and like not being afraid to like put out a quantity of titles, even if they were maybe like averaged out to be like a B grade, across the board, but they just had so many like genres and quantity of things. Whereas Nintendo was like, if we're going to do something, it's going to be like the best of the best. And yes, it might take 2 years longer than we intended, but it's going to be like a timeless thing. And you had like the push and pull of that, so ultimately if one got it right, I mean, 20, 30 years later, it's like these Nintendo 64 games were still kind of talking about in that same timeless way, and not the same with some of the kind of more mid-tier PS1 games.
Yeah, I think that's the best defense of the N64 library anyone's ever done on the show.
And it comes from the PlayStation guy, yeah. But that being said,
so much.
That being said, the PlayStation library is superior. There are better games on it. Parappa the Rapper and everything Sony did, I'll take 9 times out of 10.
PlayStation for you, is that you said you played some PS2 back in the day, but
yeah, that was our console after the Nintendo 64. We had the PS2, and then so I didn't have the GameCube. I never had a GameCube. I
had PS2 until Soul Calibur, and I wanted to play as Link, the Nintendo
that elf addiction
fandom. Yeah, but okay.
Well, I played a lot of Jak and Daxter.
Oof, that's a good game.
Yeah.
We want to do that. Talk about that someday, just for fun.
It'll be late in the show.
I had
if we're going by our timeline,
like pre-achievements and trophies. I remember on the PS2 having a memory card that had all the precursor orbs, like 100% of them. I'd fully completed Jak and Daxter, and I was like, yeah, I'm never going to delete that save file, like, just in case somebody comes over and I can show them that I got all of these. And, like, held on to it for years. And I will tell you that I never got to show that off to any single person who had any care in the world that I had 100% of Jak and Daxter. But in my brain, I was like, save this save file because, like, yeah, that's an accomplishment. You did such a great job.
Well, now you're getting it out there, right? You're impressed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They re-released it on the, like, whatever, PS3 or PS4, whatever the ones that they re-released, like a kind of touched up version of it. I did go through and get the platinum trophy for it just because I was like, this is just going to justify my original PS2 save. This way I can digitally kind of keep that saved.
Yeah. got receipts.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we get into the main episode proper, I want to give a special shout out to our Millennium Star tier patrons. That would be Infection Form, Jeremy Aber, Paul, and Underlined V. Thank you so much. And if you're listening and you're curious, we're over at patreon.com/flashback64. And we've got 2 different tiers, and the Millennium Star tier patrons, as well as getting a special shout out, they also get some bonus episodes that we have on there about kind of just off-topic things, stuff we've done in our lives. So right now we've got an episode on Godzilla and Kong, Planet of the Apes, some other movie arcade experiences we've got coming up, episodes about that sort of stuff. Just whatever other things we're up to. So thanks to everyone who supports us. Thanks to all our patrons. Thanks to all of you for listening. And let's get back into the episode. So I guess we'll tease a little bit, but we do plan to also talk about other games from the era. PlayStation 1, we'll probably do a lot of. I mean, maybe even some Saturn games. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But we've already talked to you, Darren, about doing some. But I don't know. I'd like to hit up some of the like landmark PS1 games for sure. Before we get to that, let's go back to the N64. That's been enough PlayStation talk, I think.
Yeah.
And we'll bring it back to GoldenEye, our subject, and we've talked at length about it, but Darren, I know you said you had a big connection with that multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any, like, was that, like you said, you go over to your friend's house and you play multiplayer on that, or is that like the main way you encountered the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably like most people, I mean, we played obviously the single player stuff when we tried to crush as much of like the 00 agent and the difficult challenges that had, but ultimately, you know, when enough of us were together, it was all about the multiplayer. I mean, we would play it like super often, like and it got so hardcore, you know, that we eventually even like I hated people peeking at each other's screens. Some people, you know, say that's part of the design. It's like, oh, of course, you're on the same screen. Like, that gives you a little bit of the edge. Like, that's just a tactic to multitask. And, like, in my brain, it was always like, that's what's giving this person the edge, is because they're so, like, focused on knowing if I'm moving or not, or where I'm at to sneak up. And it always bothered, you know, some of us. So we ended up getting so crazy about it that we got, like, cardboard and, like, divided it down the screen. So,
oh my God.
So it was 2-on-2, and 2 people would sit on the left side of the room, and 2 people would sit on the right side of the room. And we played a bunch of matches like this. And this was, you know, like 90s cardboard and CRT TVs and stuff. And eventually we got so hardcore about that there's like little light leaking through because the CRT has a slight curve to it, that then we started getting like torn pieces of paper to like fill in the little gaps to make sure there's no peeking. Because like some of us, I mean, I know I was one of them, but I'd swear that like if you noticed the screen wasn't moving, like they're either like aiming down the sights or like waiting at like somebody, so like it would change somebody else's strategy. So it was like trying to definitively like make it just a skill-based thing. And then ultimately, when you'd still lose, even with all of those out of the way, you find a different reason to why you lost and why you're still the greatest, and another excuse, and kind of continue on to play.
Wow.
But they were always great. And it sounds like we were at each other's throats and stuff like that, but it was always entertaining. Like, it was difficult to lose, but it was always like, all right, if I start another round, another level. Okay, this time, you know, like mines only or something like ridiculous. And we'd always have a good time.
So were you all pretty like evenly matched?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. I think me and my best friend were probably pretty like good at it. I think his younger brother was maybe one of the better ones out of all of us. And then
okay.
the fourth player would be like a kind of a rotating cast. Like sometimes it'd be my older brother or like another neighbor kid or something like that. So that was always like an odd one. But I think we would try and balance the scales and be like, me and my buddy against his younger brother, who we thought was probably, I would kind of give up to being maybe the better player. And then that fourth player, that wild card, would hopefully like balance him out and bring him down a little bit if needed. So,
okay.
Yeah, but we'd mix it up all the time. We would just kind of rotate and kind of change. We'd try. We didn't do it as much, like just like 4 or 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1, but we would do that occasionally. But it was 2 versus 2 was always like the go-to thing to do. It was just a good team-based, skill-based thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did a little bit of team stuff when we were playing some multiplayer together.
Yeah.
I think that's...
We mostly did, like, 1v1v1v1.
Yeah, like the different scenarios and things like that. I'm curious, like, what... You don't have to say if you don't want to, but what was like the age range of your group? Because, when I had games, we definitely got like that. Not quite that level of competitive, but I feel like it was like more in the GameCube Wii era. Like I feel like I was more a bystander to a lot of like the older kids in GoldenEye, you know what I mean? So yeah. I don't quite remember. I don't know. I was too young to be like good at multiplayer, I guess.
Yeah. So when this game came out, 97? Yeah. So I would have been like 11. So we were like 11, 12 years old. My friend's brother is like 9, 10 years old. So kind of a little bit younger still. I mean, we still would grow further into like more competitive gaming with each other as well as years going on. But like this was, I think, the earliest moments. I mean, it's probably already like the common thing to talk about, but how, GoldenEye like brought like that first person type of like gameplay to consoles. Like, yes, people could have played it on PCs and other platforms and stuff, but like to have the simple plug it into your TV, one console, 4 friends, like that was like the first real taste that we had of like that really competitive kind of like shooter action together with the 4 of us. So we were experiencing that collectively with the rest of the world, I think. And so even though we were a little bit younger potentially, like that was definitely like that thing we kind of continued to chase as we found other games to kind of be competitive with as we got older.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we haven't... You just started playing the game, so like we haven't gotten in any sort of... It's kind of the opposite. Like, well, is there any game like that you've ever been like really competitive with, McKenna?
No.
Not really, no. Okay, yeah. And that's, I think, over on Pixels and Polygons, that you've posed the question of like what makes a good multiplayer experience. And I think the multiplayer in GoldenEye is... I mean, it depends on the game, but my answer for it would be like in the case of GoldenEye, how you have just so many options for like customizing like the modes or how much the handicap or like the teams and things like that like we're all like, we have different levels of experience when we play, but like we're able to like, I don't think it's ever been like a slog to play it like where one person is just like dominating everyone, or in the case where someone might be, it's like usually more fun, honestly. Like how's, I mean, we ranked GoldenEye, you put it high, but I feel like the multiplayer, that's been like one of the standout experiences.
Yeah. It's the first multiplayer FPS on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah. And then actually that's like, have you played a lot of like FPS's multiplayer in general?
Not really. Sometimes I had a friend who had like COD, and we very rarely play that. We were usually more on the Nintendo side of things, where we were more likely to be playing Smash, but we occasionally do some COD, but I was never good at it, probably because I'd only play on those occasions.
Yeah. And that's a totally different animal too, where it's like,
yeah.
I don't know, this like GoldenEye now, I'm sure at the time, like you, Darren, you were telling stories about how competitive it got, but like it can also be played as like a party game. So I think that's like a strength of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned like the reason I think that it was, I mean, it's weird because it was one of the earliest console ones, but like it's strange that no others like try to emulate these specific elements of it, but like that customization, like you were saying, like, you know, turning on or off which types of weapons will appear, like the damage handicaps, like to adjust and balance out players, like skill levels, like all those types of things. I mean, Nintendo would do that again with like Smash, like how you can turn on and off which items you want to appear. So like you could really like fine tune and adjust that to like your friend groups or like your like little bubbles of like players that you want to kind of like play with and take their sandbox, but like, you know, do your thing with it. Or whereas like Call of Duty, it's like that's their experience, and especially when they got to be like online experiences, it was like, no, you had to specifically fit into like, you know, these are the guns that do the most damage, or this is the skills that, you know, appear to win the most. And so you just all like carbon copied, tried to play each other's same game and everything. Whereas GoldenEye, like, no, like knives only in the temple with like one hit kills. Like, okay, like let's do that. And it's an entirely different challenge than if you had all the other weapons available to you and stuff. So I don't think it gets like a lot of like praise for that specifically, like that customization and that ability kind of like craft it into your own, because not a lot of multiplayer games do that.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, out of what we've hit so far in the library, like I personally think this has been the best multiplayer experience. I mean, we've got Mario Kart, some fighting games, some racing games, but where does it stand for you, McKenna?
Yeah, probably the only other thing I would put in that tier is Mario Kart.
Yeah. And that game, I think, is just in general, like, it's less because of like customization. I think it's just the mechanics are very like accessible, that like it makes for no matter what, like fun multiplayer experience. Yeah,
because you know, it's more a party racing game too. It's
the items and all that stuff. Yeah. So I think that for me, this is the most fun. I mean, we had a good run with Mario Kart, and it's still fun to go back to. You know,
there's more like player interaction with GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
You know, Mario Kart, you're mostly just racing, and occasionally you might not even see the person that you're hitting with an item. Or
yeah, the only other like kind of change is you can do battle, and that, but then it's like the battle's good though. I don't want to knock battle.
I was never a battle fan. Yeah, I just couldn't get into the battle modes on Mario Kart. I like that they existed, and I'm glad people enjoyed them, but yeah, get me on that course. Get me on that track, and let me just dominate some people until that blue shell comes in and resets the playing field.
I do pretty much always prefer to race, but some of the modes in some of the games are more fun than others, I think. But that's, you know, we'll do the Mario Kart multiplayer someday.
Yeah.
So I think too, part of what makes it fun is like that there's so many combinations of levels, modes, weapons that you can do that, like, even if you've played the game a bunch of times, like, there's always that feeling of like, wait, let's try this weapon set with this mode, you know, and turn up the damage. Or even just when we were podcasting with Fun and Games, we found out about the Terminator mode, where one person gets like uber health and everyone teams up against them. And so I just think I don't know, I think that's a strength of it. So I mean, I wanted to go through and break down like the different parts of the multiplayer, but it which will be fun, but I think it doesn't do it justice, because sometimes one mode is heightened by the certain combination with it. And maybe we can reveal some of our favorite modes and combinations as we go on. But before we do that, you got to pick a character.
Yeah.
Darren, do you have a go-to character that you play?
Yeah, I would always play as Defense Minister Mishkin. I don't know why.
Okay.
Like as a kid, I must have liked the portrait and thought like, oh, this dude's cool. Like this dude's my dude.
Cool. Yeah.
Like just this low resolution, like really like muddy looking N64 image right here in front of my face. Like this guy speaks to me. So that's what I played as. Maybe it's because he had like a dark coat or something like that. I have no idea, but I remember specifically I'd always pick him, like just always. And we never really had like a lot of talk about like oh, I get to be Bond or anything like that at all. Like we all like had our characters that didn't overlap with each other, and we were fine with just kind of continuing that.
True. And I mean, like James Bond, he's cool and all, but if you're looking at his portrait next to well, maybe not Defense Minister Mishkin, but like Jaws or something, like I get why, it's like it's not like where you're fighting over being the Red Power Ranger or whatever, Yeah. There's plenty of cool characters here.
I mean, no one's fighting over red. Come on, it's the Green Ranger people were fighting over.
Oh, yeah, Green Ranger, then the White.
Yeah.
You went White Ranger, that was so tight. Sorry, I forgot about that.
What's also interesting, though, is, I mean, I was not connected to the internet in, 97. I think some family members, when I'd visit them out of state, they had it and everything, but we specifically had like a no odd job rule in our group of friends, like because we knew it was imbalanced. It was like having like the shorter character like made it harder to like hit because you'd have to like manually aim down, and the auto aim wouldn't capture them as well. So
yeah, the aiming isn't perfect.
Yeah, and so like the game, I mean, we all have the same control scheme, so it's like we're on an even playing field. As bad as the controls you want to kind of look back and think on, like in that moment they worked, they were fine. But we were all dealing with it, and but when you were odd job, like the audio aim just didn't pick up the character model as well because there was less polygons and it was shorter, so it was just like we even identified it then. We're like, no, we're not doing that. Like no odd jobs. Like get out of here. Like that's the one character we can't play as.
We did not have that rule.
Is there an odd job in your group?
Well, I didn't. I have played as him, but I didn't know that he was different than the other characters. Okay. I just happened to pick him, and then like later found out, like I guess as I was playing, I was like, oh, people are having trouble hitting me. But that was like early on when I was first playing. Yeah, so I was not good more brave. Anyway. Yeah, it helped even things out. I think
it did because you had never played it before, so it was like another handicap, built-in handicap. Yeah.
That's funny.
Did you? Well, actually, Darren, you didn't pick any of these. You picked it based off the portrait. You weren't like a fan of the movie or anything, like.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan has like all of 2 minutes in the movie, maybe.
Yeah,
and I think he gets killed in the movie too. Yeah, no, I mean, we watched the movie, we enjoyed the movie, and it was fine, but yeah, there was no reason for our choices of these things. Okay. It was just that portrait. He must have had like a I don't know. He had a goatee. Maybe I liked facial hair or something like that. I have no idea. But
like I can pick he's a grown up.
Yeah, like there was just something about that just spoke to me at a subconscious level, and that I just knew this was my character, and we found each other, and that was it. That's
beautiful. You didn't pick like any character in particular like that you would go back to, right? We would like to play as the different characters just to see their character
I
models.
Switched around. I'd say maybe like Xenia and Natalia I'd go back to more often.
For sure. Those are good ones. And it wasn't as much because like, oh, these are characters from the movie necessarily. You're just like, they're cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the little female representation in the game. I mean, the only two choices you have. There aren't even female like soldiers in the game. Like the only characters in the entire game were those two. One being a villain and one being just the NPC who would accompany you on a couple missions. But yeah, they did not use that. So yeah, got to have that representation.
Yes, they did do a good job of. Sort of. I've already kind of called them out for this, but they have all the major characters in the movie, except they don't have Jack Wade, which I thought was kind of lame. But they got all like the people who are in multiple scenes. I don't expect like Well, maybe it would have been cool if Desmond Llewellyn and Judi Dench were playable as well.
Judi Dench would have been really funny.
Judi Dench would have been
both
tight,
of them.
yeah. But I would usually tend, when I was, I think I mentioned this before, but when I was playing these games, it was with people who also got me into like horror movies. And I didn't, like, when I was like 7 years old and stuff, I didn't quite know what James Bond was. And so like they would be picking like Jaws and Baron Samedi and like, you know, these characters and stuff. And I for a moment, very briefly, and I knew about the movie Jaws, which I think is kind of where they named the character. It came out like right after it. But anyway, I always sort of thought like maybe Bond was like kind of like a scary movie, because like the Jaws always kind of freaked me out. But I like the inclusion of the different henchmen. But I guess you also could have I think some of the like random character, like they threw in basically all the like character models, and I think when we were playing there were like, you could play as like a female civilian, maybe, or no, it was like Moonraker Elite, wasn't that character I was playing as a woman?
Oh, there's a Maydays in the game. That's also right.
Yeah, Mayday.
So she is, so sorry, I was wrong. There are 3 female characters, but still, out of the 36 characters or something, if you unlock everything and use codes and everything, you know, yeah.
They also got the developers in there, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. They're plugging themselves into the game with their character faces and everything on some of them. It's very interesting to see that. I mean, I think I would do the same thing if I was a developer in that era too. Like, you know, there's probably not as much oversight with things like that, you know. So plug in little Easter eggs for yourself and, you know, map your own face to a guard and, you know, send it home. Like, there you go, Nintendo. Put that in production. That's going out to everybody's household, and I'm going to be in the game forever.
That was always a thing in Pokemon. They'd have like a building with a room with all the some of the developers, and they'd talk about what they did in the game.
Yeah, that's cute.
I like those credits rooms. Yeah, there's like some old RPGs that do that, like little debug rooms or developer rooms and stuff where they get to like have their little cameos and everything. I think it's a cool thing. I would definitely do that if I was making a game.
So you said with the scenarios, you said you did a lot of like teams, right? Did you ever mess around with like any of the other scenarios that you could play on?
Yeah, I mean, I like the like the golden gun mode, you know, a race to see who can get it, you know, and everything, and then just that one shot kill always, like, it you know, tipped the scales for sure. But I think I just like the mad dash race to getting it, and then if we were playing in a way that we were dividing the screen or trying to, like, you know, be a little like extra layered on top of that, if we didn't see the gun on the screen and we didn't know somebody had it yet or not, you know, it'd be one thing. But if we saw on the screen that somebody had it, then it's that like, game of cat and mouse where everybody's just running and fleeing and trying to hide or trying to like not be near where that character is going to come get them at. But I thought that was a cool mode for sure. I mean, I think we played all of them a lot. I didn't do a lot of like the capture the flag style ones they had, like where you had to like take it to a location. I don't know why we never really got too into that. I mean, we'd occasionally try it, but yeah, the golden gun one, though, is specifically one that I do remember us going back to for like breaks or to like mix things up.
We had a lot of fun with that one. Mm-hmm. There's sort of the thing where like we'd be playing 4-player and one person would get it and you're trying to avoid them, but you're also like trying to make a truce with everyone else to like take down the person with the golden gun.
Yeah.
But then also people were killing the person with the golden gun and then trying to kill each other before the next person could pick it up even.
Yeah.
It created a lot of good, like, tense, very dramatic moments for sure. Mm-hmm. What did you have a mode you were into the most?
Probably that and the Living Daylight, the Capture the Flag.
Living Daylights, yeah. Gotta get the movie titles in there for sure. Yeah. Living Daylights. This is one too that's, I think, it can be like heightened even further depending on the weapons or like the mode, because we would play it with like, what are some of the highlights of Living Daylights that we did?
We did throwing knives only once, which was crazy.
Because it's so hard to hit.
Yeah.
And it takes so many hits.
Yeah.
So we were like running around, just everyone's 3 people chasing one person with the flag, just whipping the knives at them.
That's good.
That would be one that would be good if you turned up the damage, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it was also kind of fun how long it took to even kill one person in that mode.
Mm-hmm.
Or like we would do that one with taking the opposite end of that. We would do it with like rocket launchers, which I think was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to run away from someone as that is coming at you. You Only Live Twice. We didn't do too much. It's I like that one just because it's so literal. They're like, well, we got the movie name, You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
Let's do the mode.
Yeah, and it's just standard rule set. You've got 2 lives, and that's it. That's the end of it. Which, okay. Didn't spice it up too much, but, let them have some fun with, the titles for sure.
License to Kill, obviously you can do a lot of fun things with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the iconic, you can do slappers only.
Mm-hmm.
And License to Kill and go to town on that one.
Yeah. We had a lot of double kills with that, where you just hit each other at the same time.
Yeah, if you kill someone and they're slapping, you're almost guaranteed to also get hit by their slap. It like keeps happening. So I don't know. It's kind of hilarious though. We had I think we had everyone, like all 4 players, kill each other at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
We had a moment where we were in I guess it was the library, and we were all just kneeling, going around with slappers only. Just everybody,
I think because one person was odd job. Or maybe we were trying to like block. So
I think one person started kneeling, and they had like the clear advantage, so everyone started doing it. So you just saw us all gliding around the level.
There's some very like silly moments in the games like that just come in. I think, and they were aware of that too. Like with some of the like reading in the GoldenEye boss fight books, they were talking about how some of the animations or whatever look silly, but they kind of were like, let's just embrace that because it's it's easier than trying to make it look not silly.
Yeah, that was a good book to read. I think some of the death animations they had were like a lot longer and a little bit more like disturbing potentially. That like they had Nintendo ask them to kind of tone that down, even with some of the blood as well too. So I'd be curious to see some of those like death animations they thought were like too much or over the top, like how silly a guard could look, like wallowing in pain on the ground or so. Like what were some of the extreme ones that Nintendo thought was too much?
There's none like that I actually feel like, oh, that's too much, but there are one where I'm like, oh man, that guy he's I really got him. I really messed him up. Like some of them, they just last so long that you're like, it's so dramatic.
Yeah, well, maybe like a slow fall where they'll fall on their knees first or something.
You're like, oh my god, I've committed murder. Yeah, that book was a great read. But I think this was pointed out in our last episode. But one thing that I learned from the book was how like last minute the multiplayer mode was, and you can kind of see it in some like aspects. It doesn't really hurt it, but like we noticed like some levels you can't play with 4 players, and it might be because like I assume they just probably couldn't get them to work with 4 players, things like that. But for how like last minute they got to add it in and everything, like not even with that like asterisk, I feel like it is just like we said, it's like probably our top multiplayer experience. So like they did a great job for, I don't know, having not much time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did, like, like just the single player experience is solid. Like the different difficulties and having the objectives, like spice up the levels and like vary the way that you play. Like it definitely was a reason to kind of replay and keep coming back. And then even tying like some of the silly cheats to like completing levels after a certain time period and stuff like that all made the game replayable. But the multiplayer mode is what gave the game the legs for sure. Like the fact that it kind of continued to be talked about and played and was like reviewed as highly, I think was just based on that sheer entertainment factor of being a multiplayer game. And so like, yeah, for that to have been like an 11th hour edition and for them to just like thought, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, maybe we could do this. Like in that book, that GoldenEye book from Boss Fight that you were talking about, they mentioned how they were toying around with it, and they knew that because they already had missed so many deadlines and the game was already so late, like they were not going to be okay with them to like delay it one more time, but they still had to ask. So they didn't mention anything about multiplayer. They kept hiding that until like a final presentation with whoever it was that they named the Klob after. I forget the guy's name who was like
Ken Lobb.
Yeah, Ken Lobb. Yeah, Klob. When they showed like a final, like a kind of like a final showcase to him, then they just like, you know, oh, and one more thing, showed him multiplayer, knowing he'd be like unhappy, but then instantly like, okay, you guys have to finish this, like fine, like I'll try and like not have Nintendo be too angry with the fact that you're already going to miss another deadline just to do this. But obviously the game is like infinitely better for having that multiplayer mode added to it. So it's crazy to think that, you know, it almost wasn't a possibility.
Yeah, it's wild. You know, it's weird. It makes me think of, I know this was planned. It's like, seems like earlier on to be in the game, but it kind of mirrors, I was reading, you know, all the different books about the creation of Doom. And it was like when they were, for the multiplayer and that, like that was like one of the last things they worked on, and like they were pretty far into development, and then they're like, oh crap, like we gotta like start working on this. And I just think it's funny, like both that game and this game in their own ways kind of like changed multiplayer gaming a lot, or in some cases created it. And it's just funny that it like came so late in the development.
Out of all like accident and second thoughts of just like, oh yeah, we got to do that, and then turns out to be something amazing. But yeah, that's how the magic happens. Did you
Darren, did you have a favorite level to play? Obviously, like the variety is nice, but what was your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, just like putting my brain back in there, like the complex was my favorite level for sure. I like the facility as well. We called it the faculty because we could read really well.
I think I did that too.
So yeah, the faculty was a great one, and but complex, we'd have like nicknames for some of the areas, and again, like we primarily played like 2 versus 2 and stuff. So there's always teams like communicating. So we try and have like code names for things that the other person didn't know. My God. But then we ended up like learning them. But we're like, oh, they're in the Joyride Cove, and like that's just like why we called it. I don't know, but it was like the little area that had like looked out over that little V-shaped walkway, and like it was just really, and you can go upstairs. It's just kind of hard to describe, but that when we would think somebody would be in there, we knew there was one main entrance, but like you could throw mines in through the window or through mines up through like a little like square in the ground they had in the area as well. And so when we knew they'd be there, we'd have our ways to kind of like breach, you know, with like grenades or mines, and then storm up the little rampway up to where they were at. And yeah, it was always good. And then like learning the little like the false walls, where there was a couple locations where like you could just kind of duck behind a little like cove, and you know, it wouldn't work every time, and like it was always good to like you just pop a shot off just in case, like even if you don't think anybody's there when you're running by it and all that stuff, you just shoot in there just to be safe, because the fat chance somebody's in there, you now have the jump on them and they're cornered and everything. But yeah, that I really like that level. Just specifically with like the different weapon combinations, it always like changed like where you played and where a lot of the confrontations were.
Oh yeah.
Just because of their like kind of like 3 different primary like rooms, a little downstairs area, and then that little central area. So the complex is, yeah, in my brain, it just stands out even like now. Like I'd love that to be like reappear in like some modern multiplayer games as just like a throwback, just because.
Oh yeah, I mean, when he said complex, McKenna, you had like a hell yeah face. I think we both did.
Yeah.
Is that your...
Yeah, that was definitely a fun one. I think you said it. It's called complex because it's a complex level.
It's so complex.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of places to hide.
It's like connects like in more unique ways than some of the other ones, I think, too. Mm-hmm. Different sort of branching paths.
Yeah, kind of easier to get lost in.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like we would do the hiding in the vents and stuff like that, the false walls, but well, since we were not we weren't covering our screens, it was pretty obvious when it was happening, but yeah. the way you would get around it is you'd just face the corner and crouch and hope they can't tell which one.
Yeah. That is a tactic.
But
yeah.
We would have the radar on. I don't know if you ever did the no radar cheat.
Oh yes, the no radar was part of the screen division, like 100%. Yeah. Like you are not allowed to know at all where we are with any extra help of technology.
That would really heighten it, I think. Make it even, keep you on your toes even more. So yeah, it was pretty easy to to find people who were hiding in our sessions, but if you knew the level better, you were often rewarded in that one.
Mm-hmm.
It probably helps. Like it's a really cool looking level, and like there's some areas that are lit different, like with different colors.
Oh yeah.
So I guess it probably helps to know like, oh, this is like the blue lit area, so these are the things that are over here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I started to, like, oh, if you go up this ramp by this color, that's where, like, the body armor is, or, like, this one little area, that's where it's usually would be like, oh, the blue area, the yellow area, for sure. And, well, we can't forget the sky.
Yeah.
One thing that's cool about that level, too, is, like, all the other levels, like, kind of, there's either it's from the game or it resembles something from the game. And this, like, there's not, like, a location anywhere in the story mode that looks like this at all. And I think maybe there is, like, red sky in one of the surfaces, maybe. But, like, when you can look up in Complex and see, like, that weird red sky, it just gives it such a different vibe from, like, even what the rest of the game is going for. So just a cool level to hang out in.
Especially as you're mostly like indoors, especially for the multiplayer.
Oh yeah,
so you're not really seeing sky.
My favorites were Complex and the Faculty, but a big reason in that is, and spoiler alert, is they bring those levels back in Perfect Dark.
Yes.
The multiplayer mode has those. And so I think honestly, I think when we played multiplayer in Perfect Dark, those were the go-tos because we just had such a fondness and familiarity of them from GoldenEye. They were just like, hell yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, and I think like speaking to like modern games and multiplayer games, like they have to go through such like a fine-tuned balance and everything to make sure things are even. And like I don't know if you've ever seen like heat maps that developers look at, like where people are being shot at and everything. Like they see like the easy spots, the spots players are commonly going to like try and pick off opponents, but they make sure that like level design is like equally balanced, and it's and sometimes it's almost like a mirror or like a copy and paste of like the same thing, just to start in both sides and meet in some unique middle or something. But like those, like the Complex and Facility or Faculty, I'll still call it the Faculty.
Yes.
Like they were completely like asymmetrical. Like they weren't like designed in a way that wherever you spawned from, you had an equidistance between you and like these specific weapons and to like this primary room or anything. It was just like, here's just an environment with various rooms and places and hallways and things, but it was just a unique shape that it didn't matter like where you're at. You just kind of like, you took advantage of your location or went to where you were more comfortable and thought you were more secluded potentially. And it, I don't know, I liked those types of levels where it was, just it was actually like a level or an environment that wasn't worried about being some competitive balance. It was just like there just to be a sandbox to play in.
Yeah, I mean, that was even a big part. You mentioned it, McKenna, in a previous episode, in like just their level design philosophy was like level first.
Yeah.
Gameplay later.
Yeah.
That does, I think, lead to like a lot of my favorite levels are those ones like that, especially the ones that are like more standout, like environments from the game or the movie, like, and we did a little game session, McKenna and I, where we were playing the multiplayer, but we were just doing it to walk around the levels and look. Mm-hmm. And so it was good to like bunker that was just such a fun one to play in, but also like when we were exploring, just because it's like such a cool setting from the movie and everything, it's cool to like walk around and look around. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there one like, that was probably the standout one for us?
Yeah, I think another one, which I don't think we had played before, we just had our little session, was Caverns.
Yes, I think it's funny. There's caves and caverns.
Yeah, this one's much better than caves, I think.
Yes, caves is hot garbage.
Lighting and
caves, you could never tell where you are.
Yeah, that was. I feel like that's also one that has a lot of places to. I guess it has a lot of open areas, but there are also some places to hide, and it's got a lot of like up and down, and it's got the circle doors. Those doors are awesome. Yeah. Just a great great asset. At one point I like went into a room and I saw this area at the wall that was darker, and I was like, oh, can I go in here? So I went in there and waited for you to eventually come in the room, and you didn't know I was there. So I just killed you, and you're like, where are you? I don't think I ever I think you had to reveal yourself to me. Yeah. That was a good discovery. Yeah. Mm. Those ones were good. I think the closest to like what you were saying, Darren, about one that's designed like a more like what you'd expect, like a multiplayer first person shooter map, I would think of like the Temple is kind of like that, because there's like the central room and then it branches off, but they all kind of connect back in. It's a cool level. It's kind of a classic level, but it's less. I just think of like the big empty rooms, like it's not as exciting of an environment to be in, I don't think.
Were those levels unlocked like always to play in? Like were they, because I don't remember like what a fresh copy of the game would look like, because it's been a while, but
I don't remember now. Because I know there were some you had to get.
Yeah, the 2 extra levels like in the main game that you unlocked, like the Aztec and Egyptian levels, were like the 2 bonus ones if you complete like enough objectives on the harder difficulties and stuff. But like, were those also Temple, unlocked?
Those, I don't think. I think some of those you can access via like Game Shark. Like I saw, like our buddy Quaid was showing, like that you can play Cradle if you have a Game Shark.
Yeah,
like, they
in
couldn't
multiplayer,
get to work in the game. But no, Temple I think is there from the beginning. It's the one that has like the doors are like the big columns.
Oh yeah. No, I remember the level. I just wasn't sure if if it was something you had to unlock to play in multiplayer, if it was always just unlocked for everyone in multiplayer.
I can't recall. I think so. But I do remember we had to get some of them. Like we might have even, did we do a cheat maybe? I don't remember. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't recall. I guess for Temple, I think the best utility of that one with those big empty rooms is if you want to do something like rockets, something like that, where you can be shooting explosives from a distance. It's a little more fun, though. In tight corners, in tight spaces, can also be funny.
Blow yourself up often.
I think those are we've hit on kind of the big levels. There's obviously, we talked the caves, there's the the basement library stack thing where they kind of like split them off.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play the one it's like 2 levels combined, but they have to separate them for if you're playing with 4 players, I think it is.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I think just to help keep the frame rate in like a healthy 20 frames per second range. Which is
smooth.
Yeah, that's smooth 20 frames per second. I think I've seen some videos online of that cradle level, like in multiplayer, and it does tank to like 10 frames a second in like some pretty like brutal, like, really sluggish like movements and stuff. So I get why they removed it, but part of me though still thinks like, why not just have it there? Like everybody would be dealing with it, so like let's just see what happens. But I guess quality control is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I yearn for a like a Night Dive style release of it, where they're like slap on all that extra stuff that people want in there,
Yeah, I mean they were attempted to have done that with that Xbox Live Arcade one that was like canceled at the 11th hour, and then they re-released that, or not re-released, but they tried to redo that Reloaded one or whatever it was. Just, man, it's just weird how they've like never been able to like replicate any form of like entertainment from this, and even when attempting to re-release the exact same game, they've even managed to screw it up, which is just crazy.
Yeah, maybe we can at least get like a good maybe that whole recompilation thing can get a good version of it going.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that.
I guess the last aspect of it I wanted to touch upon was, I guess, weapon sets. Like, did you have a favorite go-to? We've talked about some of them, but like, what did you play a lot of, Darren?
I always remember not liking,
if you'd like to.
Yeah, I always remember not liking that Klob. Like, even though it was like a machine gun looking thing, I just felt like it never like was effective and everything. But like my favorite things were like the mines, like using proximity mines or remote mines, like having some of those like around, like were always like entertaining. Like getting a Magnum obviously is like it's not a one-shot kill thing, but it's a heavy damage thing.
Feels good.
But that silver gun, it was like a handgun. What was that called?
The DD-44.
Yes.
Dovey?
Yeah, I never knew how to pronounce it. Yeah, but that's the gun. That was always my favorite gun for whatever reason. It felt like it, like, obviously it did more damage than like the PP7, but and it wasn't like a high-end gun you're only going to find at like one spawn location on a map. Like, you could maybe find it a couple places. So I always like to have that be like my go-to one while like looking for something, bigger if needed.
Oh, for sure. You said mines, and McKenna, you're into the mines.
Yeah, I like the proximity mines a lot.
Those are great.
Those are probably the most fun, I think.
Can make for a really chaotic level.
It's nice to like do the thing. I don't know if when I was young, I thought I was doing this. I loved remote mines in the faculty, because there's a lot of like closed off areas, like you mentioned with the level, so you could kind of like make your base, and kind of have a little like standoff with people. But I feel like maybe I didn't get a chance to, but it was the other mines that I felt like were more fun when we were playing like recently.
The timed ones?
Or proximity, obviously. Proximity.
The timed ones were fun too. Especially when you're in the same room with someone and you're just like running around with each other, trying not to get hit by your own mine.
Timed mine versus timed mine is awesome.
We had some interesting situations with the timed mines the other day. We were like in a very small room and you threw a timed mine at me.
I was trying to, kind of sacrifice myself, take us both down, but
there's just so much, like, all I can see on my screen is explosions, and
you're getting hit.
Somehow I don't die, but you did.
That's horrible.
That's good. That's like good karma. Yeah, the time mines were like, it's like grenades, but like, they don't just bounce or like wander somewhere. So it's like they'll stick to something random and hopefully nearby, where somebody's going to be, or if you think somebody's going to chase you. But I don't think I could ever get very strategic with them. It was always more like last ditch effort for like some chaos, but not really like something I could plan around. Like I feel like the proximity mines, like in the faculty going into that area behind like the heavy doors and stuff, like I'd like put a few around the doors, so if somebody walked in and they die, I'd be like, all right, great, and then I'd go into one of the rooms and put them around there, and know I'd have like a second layer of defense, so I can at least take out 2 people while I'm just doing absolutely nothing, sitting in this room, probably staring at the walls so that people don't screen peek me and know exactly where I am or anything. But yeah, those are good.
I'd be like doing that and like trying not to like giggle with anticipation, like that's my worst thing is like I can't like act like I'm busy,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because then somebody just look at your screen and be like, what are you laughing about? You're staring at your feet. Like, oh, you're not near me. Don't come through that door. Boom.
Mines were good. Did you have another one you liked, McKenna? That Mines was number 1, but
we talked about Slappers Only.
Slappers Only is good. Especially with License to Kill on. I feel like the joke gets a little bit older when it takes so long to kill them.
Yeah.
It can be funny though if you just we've had some people like who are just down, they've out of ammo and they survive on slapping, It's always a heroic moment.
One thing I thought was interesting to read in that same book was slappers is British slang for a woman of the night, a prostitute, to try and keep it as PG as possible. But so they thought they were being really funny by calling that game mode Slappers Only and having people run around the levels, thinking they were getting one over on Nintendo and everything by having just their little British slang.
How cheeky.
Yeah.
Let's see. Pistols. You sort of mentioned all of the pistols and pistols. I think that's a good. Like you look at all of them, I feel like they actually do a good job of like kind of having like a basic one, a middle one, and then like you get the Magnum and pistols, and you feel like amazing. And I think it lends it, like you were talking about, kind of level geometry, but also kind of like where you spawn and stuff. Like it can sometimes be a luck of the draw with spawning next to a good weapon right away, and I think that adds a little bit to for us, like more of the party game feel, because it's just like one person can spawn and like, oh, I got some junk and someone else got the golden gun,
Yeah. One gun that I always wanted to be good, that RCP-90.
Oh yes,
it always had like a unique look, and you didn't get to use it except for like really just on a couple of levels, I feel like, in the single player, but maybe it was more, but I don't know. But like, yeah, I always wanted to, like, I felt like I wanted to like impact more, or like do more damage and stuff. I felt like you had a lot of bullets and it fired a lot, but it just didn't do as much damage as I wanted it to. So I ultimately never really like stuck to it in multiplayer, but obviously if it was the only thing near me, you'd take it. But I always wanted it to be better than it really was in my mind.
I always just thought it was awesome because it just looks cool.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was cool because you could get it from Xenia, in the single player, and you could dual wield it with the grenade launcher because I guess just because she could, they made it possible. It's like, it kind of made me wish you could do more like weapon combinations would be kind of sweet. It was always kind of wild, like trying to do both. It really wasn't that like, couldn't be that strategic with it, but it was funny. It's just completely unload, Yeah, that would be they have that in the power weapons, which I don't know, that also had the automatic shotgun, which I thought was pretty fun. I mean, that just stood out to me from the level you use it mainly in, and Statue is like kind of a like sweet moment of the game where you get that gun and start taking people out. the Janus soldiers, but
Oh, I was just gonna bring up like the throwing knives that it's the only really weapon like that. But like sometimes you can recover your knives. Like you can pick up one of the knives that you or someone else threw.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little, recoverable ammo going on.
Yeah, that's kind of ahead of its time a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that started, but I thought that was cool there.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is one of the earliest uses of that because, I mean, by default, it's just like they're assigning damage based on like a rate of fire, but they're not like rendering out the bullets with polygons and having them all like live in the environment or anything. So to have the throwing knife like be thrown and then recognize where it hit or where it was like landed at, and then recognize that as being an item that you can then pick up and it counts as ammo and everything. Like, it did take some specific programming, for that to work out that way, which I always thought was really cool. Like, yeah, you could throw it if it worked out, then go pick it back up and never really run out of them, kind of.
Yeah, when we were playing it just against each other, we were like both throwing knives and they're like clanging off the walls, and you're just seeing like you picked up a throwing knife, not even trying to. Yeah. It's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You did mention the Clob, which is part of the automatics set, which is kind of, I feel like it's okay. It seems okay. Like it could be competitive and all, but you've got the PP7. I like it. It's always silenced, which is thank you for that in the multiplayer. The DD44, as you mentioned, your go-to, the Clob, and then was it the DK5 Deutsch? Is that what that is? Yeah. I feel like that's a cool gun. Like I always think of the frigate level. You kind of use that one, I think, a lot. But I don't know. That's kind of an okay weapon set for me. It's not my favorite. Also speaking of sniper rifles is not, I don't know. Did you use the sniper rifle much, Darren?
No, I mean, I like the idea of it, and I always wish that there was like big maps and big levels, like especially as like newer games came out and they started doing that. Like you wanted that to be something cool to use, but it was never really that useful. Like just in that opening level in the dam, like you kind of like can take advantage of like, oh, this is great, this is how this works, but I never really use it much more than that, and especially not in multiplayer. Like you would want to, but then as soon as you start looking down the scope, some screen peeker is going to see that you're doing that and ruin the fun and everything. So, yeah, I like the idea of it. I just, don't really care for the execution here, and that's okay because there's so many other good ones to balance out with.
Yeah, it's hard to aim at a moving target with the sniper rifle in this.
Yeah, most of the good shooting in this requires some more of the auto aim, and when you're straight up just aiming, it's a little unwieldy, I guess you could say. It's not so bad when it's like a enemy AI like in the single player. You can kind of they're kind of just running in a straight line typically, or they'll do a roll. But like when you're trying to fight someone who's zigzagging, it's pretty much impossible. It was fun to use in the single player, and it is a little disappointing because you use it in that first level and then it doesn't really come up much. Maybe a surface you get it, but it's a little disappointing. I feel like they could have had more. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they couldn't have more sniping levels, but it was a good gun in theory. I agree with you. We had a fun mode, self-made mode the other day where we both had sniper rifles and we were just seeing how far on a map we could shoot each other from. And we kind of had a little a duel almost that way.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be bad. Like if you couldn't couldn't walk past a certain line or something like that. Like, hey, you have to stay in this area, and then we just shoot each other to see who can dance around long enough and not avoid being hit, but also try and hit the other person.
We were backing up as far as we could, to where we couldn't even see the other person, or we could barely see them because we'd be slightly behind a door or something, but we were seeing will this still hit? And it would. So at least it's got a good range, I'll give it that. Grenades. You mentioned throwing grenades. Like in the grenades is always a fun one because you got kind of a good mix. Well, you got the clob in there, but you've got a good mix of kind of the KF-7 Soviet and the DD-44, and then they throw in a grenade, which I feel like can be fun to use strategically. Like bounce. I always love bouncing them off the walls and stuff. So I always prefer the mines, but there is like. It's much more difficult, but the grenades kind of do have a satisfying feel when you can pull off something with them. Okay, we talked about the remote mines, and that actually has like a unique set of guns, pretty unique set. Yeah, all the mines we got. Grenade launcher was pretty fun to use. A lot of the levels, it's very tricky to use them in, but I don't know, anything with explosives, I think. Even like the worst explosives you can use are still fairly fun because it can cause such chaos.
Yeah, my favorite way to use a grenade launcher was just to wait for somebody to go through a door, and as the door is opening up, just shoot the grenade launcher at them.
Yeah, that's a good utility because you just have a frustrating door opening death. The other way I remember we would use those is when we play like a really mine heavy like map. It's a good way to like clear out mines that you maybe can't see or aren't quite invisibility. Like you just shoot the grenade launcher in like a doorway or into a room and hope that it triggers and explodes some proximity mines or something. And it's more of like a safety net to like hopefully get into somebody's little like, walled off like sanctuary. Then you can find them and they aren't prepared for you to fight them, and you can use the rest of your grenade launcher ammo to kill them.
Yeah, I remember doing that, or also doing like if you had even just like remote mines, like putting it on the door and then just shooting it to trigger the explosion, so it would hopefully trigger the explosion on the other side of the door. Between that and rockets, I think you get a lot of fun there. But we talked about the golden gun, but one that's I feel like kind of similar. I think this is the last weapon set. Yeah, is I always actually found the lasers was a lot of fun. Did you guys do lasers much, Darren?
We didn't do those much, but yeah. I mean, it was a fun gun, or gun quotation mark. But yeah, no, I don't really have much like memory of us using it that often. I mean, I think everything got played with. We just change things up for variety's sake every once in a while, but it wasn't like in our regular like go-to rotation for sure.
Do you recall, McKenna, the match we did with lasers?
Yeah. The 1v3?
Yeah, that was one of this is even before we discovered Terminator mode. I feel like actually, so what we did was 1v3, and we picked, I don't know, we just thought who's up for being the one, and our pal Quaid agreed to do it, and the lasers are, I mean, they're actually, in a lot of ways, it's like better than the golden gun because it's like unlimited ammo. I don't know if it's one hit kill, but like they do, pretty sure they did
They do a lot, yeah.
A lot of damage, yeah. So we did 1v3, and we thought we're just gonna kill him. But the problem was that the laser did so much damage that if he could, get a kill in on us like pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And
while
so
we were still looking for, the laser.
We're looking for the laser, looking for him. We didn't get our ducks in a row, like kind of cornering him. A couple times we did.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like, we were doing points based, obviously, and like we actually just ended up being like fish in a barrel for him, and it was like we lost by a lot, but it was still quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have to reload that one, right?
What's that? You don't have to reload. You can just fire constantly with no downside.
Yeah, now I remember that. Yeah, that could be fun in a mode like that for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's a mode I think we could tweak like maybe tweak the health a little bit more, but I think we'll have to give that more of a shot with our friends, because it's been a good time. I think Yeah, I think that's all. That's basically all the features. Like, there's little things you can do, like mess with the controls or whatever. Change how the aiming. I don't know. Did you mess? You probably just played standard stuff, right, Darren?
Yeah, we didn't mess with the controls too much at all. I mean, like, I do remember trying to go back and play it, like, being older and trying to mess with the controls to see if I can get them to feel, more modern, but it's just a single analog stick. You're going to get what you get out of it. So, I always just kind of stuck to the standard.
Yeah, there's a thing we started doing to try to make it close to dual analog, and it works okay. But I've still found playing on the N64 controller is the way you want to go. Mm-hmm. We did talk about a little bit like no radar. Did you play with many cheats on or anything like that?
No, not often, but obviously just having it for fun, like having like paintball mode just sometimes just to spice things up, like the DK mode. We were big NBA Jam players, my best friend and I, and so like that also just kind of sparks like some of that old like nostalgia there, just having like a big head mode. So it was always it was always entertaining having that in the game, but it also was a little bit ridiculous, so it was never something that we'd like keep on for a long time or anything.
We pretty much would always have paintball on, right? Mm-hmm. Because it just is cool. It just looks cooler. Yeah. Big head mode, it would be more of a thing of like we'd turn it on for a level for fun, and then we forget to turn it off.
Yeah.
And it becomes like how the game looks for a while till you remember that's not right. One thing we didn't unlock, we did on the Game Shark, but we didn't really test it out in multiplayer, but you can unlock it in the single player, but we didn't unlock the turbo mode. But Quaid was singing the praises of, you do turbo mode, slappers only, license to kill, and you're just like flying across the screen like trying to slap each other. Yeah. We have to add that to our well, I gotta unlock it for our Switch so we can do it. This has been kind of like the final thing we talked about, because it is, you mentioned it is sort of the thing that after the game is done, it's what gives it legs going on. And I mean, I think we're going to still be playing it on stream with our friends or whatever for a long time. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's one of the best multiplayers we've played. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, there was one more thing, too, that I liked about it, was the awards, like at the end of the matches. Like, it would give you those things. Yeah, like, I always like those, like, to read those, because it would help me justify, like, if somebody was being, like, a bad player or not. Or, like, if you're losing, hey, at least I had this, I was most honorable or whatever. Like, yeah, I may have lost the match, but hey, that's fine. Like, so like they had a few different ones in it. I mean, like, I think there was like marksmanship award for like accuracy and stuff. I mean, where's the armor, like if you never like picked up armor, or like you picked up the least or whatever it may be, but like, yeah, that most honorable, I don't remember what you did
least
to get
deadly.
Oh yeah, that's a sad one. Yeah, but yeah, I don't remember what you had to do to get most honorable, but I just remember the title, like having that come up with like after matches.
Yeah, I never actually really considered that. What do you think it is?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up.
Not shooting
please.
them from behind, like.
Yeah,
I think that shooting someone from behind would be like dishonorable.
But
that's speculation.
Yeah, here it is. Yep, that's. Yeah, multiplayer awards. Here it is. The player who fought the most in a person's face rather than shooting them in the back was most honorable. And then the player who fought the dirtiest and shot most people with their backs turned was most dishonorable. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's fun.
Well, there's like more on here than I remember.
Yeah, most professional, the player who achieves the most head and neck shots. Most deadly, the player who is the most dangerous to encounter. Which most kills, I guess I would rate that.
Yeah. Highest kill to death ratio.
Yeah, that must be what it is. Longest innings, the player with the longest lifespan. Shortest innings, player with the shortest lifespan. AC10.
I don't remember.
The Lemming.
Lemming Award. Highest suicide
Okay,
count.
wait, I didn't notice. I feel like I had to have showed up in like one of the mines.
Oh, I was blowing myself up so much.
Yeah. And quad kill, the player who was able to kill all 4 players with the same explosive. I mean, that would count as killing yourself. Like, it wouldn't then?
Yeah, I think it would have to, right?
Take everybody down.
Yeah, it is only possible by killing yourself in addition to... well, we definitely have done that.
Most frantic was the most hyper player who runs around a lot and zigzags continuously. That's what this says.
What is this? Is it real? Like, I'm just looking on... the first thing that came up was GoldenEye Wiki. And it says quad kill is also... there's a parenthetical dough on it. Like, so it's Homer Simpson style.
Yeah, I don't see a screenshot of it. I just see I'm on a game FAQs, like, ASCII write-up.
I wonder if they... is that real? I don't know if that's real. Okay, well... nonetheless, that's a good... I can't believe we forgot to mention that. Thank you for remembering that.
Now we can call this the definitive multiplayer conversation.
Well, I guess I was going to say, I'm curious. It'll be fun to see for you. We were talking in our last episode about music, and we are talking about most nostalgic tracks, and you don't have one necessarily because it's a new game for you. But I'm kind of excited for, 10 years from now or whatever, when we play Perfect Dark, if you'll feel nostalgic for The Faculty.
Yeah. I guess, there's the multiplayer music.
Yeah.
Like, there's a few multiplayer tracks.
Yeah, like multiplayer exclusive tracks, which we didn't mention at all in our music episode, but I was thinking, when I was putting that together, I was thinking about those. I'll probably play some at the beginning and the end, because there are some bangers in that.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh shit, I didn't even expect this to be here.
Plus, like, the death screen sound music is a little different in multiplayer than in single player campaign. I think it's shorter in the multiplayer, presumably, so you can get back into the action faster. Yeah,
I would think so. Yeah, you can kind of like skip it a little bit too. Like, if you hit start or something, you can kind of get back in the game quicker. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Maybe.
Yeah,
that death animation and music though is always like, it does kind of like it heightens the experience. I think when you get killed and it's so, the blood comes down, the music plays. It's probably one of the best like multiplayer death animations. I don't know what to call it, but that's quite a highlight of the multiplayer in particular. I think it's even better. In the single player, it's a little bit more frustrating. You're like, I don't want to die. In the multiplayer, you kind of expect to die.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. Maybe you don't expect it.
I do.
Yeah, Darren, anything else you wanted to say about it? It could be the multiplayer or GoldenEye in general.
I wanted to come prepared and everything and have a good conversation and everything. So, like I said, I read that book from Boss Fight Books. It's just called GoldenEye. So, like, that's just gets a good recommendation for me. If you're the type of person who likes to read books on retro video games, then obviously it's a good one to read. But it also was written from just like a perspective of somebody's like kind of personal personal account and personal feeling of like the game and everything. Like they had like they pulled from a lot of interviews and a lot of sources who like, from the developers and from the time and everything, which is really cool. But just it kind of helped put me back in that place and that mindset and everything. So it definitely does get a recommendation from me. So if you're a fan of GoldenEye and you kind of want to dive deeper with it and you don't want to watch like a really low budget YouTube video, that book was a good one. No offense to you low budget YouTube content creators out there. I still watch your stuff. Like, you're still getting my views. It's just, I do like
we watch a lot of those for sure.
The book changes things up and kind of gives you a little bit more entertainment. It's like a ESPN 30 for 30, but without the sports and in text form.
I think it was, I'll say like it was probably like the most interesting like thing that I read, watched, or whatever in preparation for this. Yeah, you said it well. Like, kind of touching on, it does a good job of like giving you the backstory, giving you some personal stuff. Like, I think it walks that line really well, where it's like both educational, but also like, it's not just like reading a, dry sort of like straight up history of it. It's got like the personality in there too.
Yeah, and I think that's what I enjoy in, books. I mean, obviously something that's like scientific and in documentary style, like, you do want that to be like well researched and have like plenty of facts and detail and everything. But, realistically in the retro gaming mindset, nostalgia is important. And so just to kind of like have some of your personal flair or thoughts and all that stuff be able to be mixed in with some of those details, like it makes for a good read. So I typically read comic books, so it was exciting to get through an entire book without a single picture in it, and I gave myself a high five for doing that.
A little gold star.
Yeah.
Some type of accolade, most honorable.
Yes, that definitely was a most honorable achievement award for me. Yep.
Well, that's actually, I mean, it's a good segue back into re-plugging your stuff, because I would say that quality that you were just describing, I think, is a quality of the 32-bit library books. Because, like, I don't know a lot about the, like, deeper PlayStation library. I know, like, some of the bigger games and some of the series and stuff, but it's cool to, like, kind of have those different developers laid out in front of me. But, like, you kind of do inject, like, kind of personal observations into it that are sometimes funny or just interesting or whatever, or you'll be talking about some little aspect of the game that like personally stuck out to you. And I don't know, it's something I like about those books a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a crutch of mine in them, and in that, like, maybe I'm just too self-conscious to be like super researched. Like, I mean, I don't want to get something wrong or get something like, factually incorrect or anything. So I do my research. I mean, I play the games. I dig through all these old reviews. I try and read developer interviews and have a lot of fun, like, doing that research side of thing. But, like, the goal is more of, like, it chronologically, like, takes you through all those games. And so, like, to, like, flip through it and just, like, really let your own personal nostalgia, your own, like, personal memories of those games, like, that's really telling the story. Like, you're looking at a lot of the screenshots and everything that are in there, and hopefully you're just putting yourself back in that mindset of when you first experienced those games. And so, like, that's kind of where I really wanted to, like, write from, was just kind of like, hey, like, what was special about these things? Like, even, like, the bad games, like, I try not to take any game, like, negatively or like, try and be like have like a disparaging, like commentary on something. Like, every developer sat down, not attempting to make the worst game ever. Like, they all wanted to make entertaining games. So even on the ones that, like, maybe aren't as remembered as fondly, like, still trying to find some of those details about, like, the development or about, like, some of the mechanics or things they were trying to attempt to do in that game that are worth kind of spotlighting. It was just kind of cool to be able to, like, write through that lens. And then obviously, yeah, everything that I had like a personal touch for or anything, like, I like to share, like, those little details, about it, in hopes that it kind of sparks, whoever's reading it, like, it sparks their own memories of it, or if they hadn't played it before, maybe that'll give them context as to why it's so fondly remembered when you try and replay them and realize, it's not the same experience today as it was 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I appreciate that element a lot. Like, that's something I feel like we try to do, like, a little bit of, like, there's a lot of games that were, like, there's, like, we have varying degrees of nostalgia for. There's a lot I don't know, and I don't know, we've played only a couple games, so I feel like it's been nice to have on people who can kind of share in that, their sort of nostalgia for these games that we're seeing with, like, varying degrees of fresh eyes. I think we're trying to have a fair balance of that. Give every game its, like, kind of fair shake too, or a fair, like, shot in the sun, like, kind of try to, I don't know, give, I guess, like, yeah, someone's first impression of it, but also someone's, like, nostalgia of it. I don't know, trying to mix all that together, find a good balance.
Yeah,
it's been fun. But yeah, sorry, I don't want to take away from your plug, Darren. Is there anything else that you'd like to promote?
No, I mean, I'm not comfortable promoting myself, so
yeah, understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing.
We
the
gave
books.
up on it.
Yeah, like the 32-bit library books. Like I've been plugging away at. I have a 4th volume I'm putting together now. Like I do have a Kickstarter going for it. Like I don't know how soon this episode goes up or not, but like that's happening for like another like 9 days or something. But yeah, it's just fun doing that. And then like the podcast. Like I mean, it's just like a companion podcast that I hope that people who like old video games, can find. 30 minutes a week. It's easy to hopefully plug into somebody's schedule, and the same thing. I hope it just kind of evokes like your own answers to the questions that I ask. Just kind of, what are some great gaming memories or mechanics or special things about whatever it is. Just kind of get yourself thinking. Like I don't know. I tie a lot of like good memories of like growing up in my childhood to like video games. Like even just hanging out with my friends and all that stuff. Like you don't get to do that as an adult. Like I live 500 miles away from my best friend now, and I don't get to see him that often. But thinking about these video games, like yes, the games are great and amazing, but then like the memories of being able to like play side by side with him again, like in an older time, like it's just cool to think back on and like be in a different place again. And I think that's why video games is more than video games to me. Like they're a part of that, but it's just that vessel to like just those great experiences, and you can't really replace that. So. Yeah, it's not just I'm overspending on a bunch of valueless collectibles or anything. I'm capturing memories of a great time that, yes, it is gone, and I have new memories with my kids and my wife and everything now, but like, this was a different moment, and that was a different era, and it's great to just kind of put myself back there.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like not wanting to be like, you don't want to be caught in the nostalgia, but there is a value obviously to, like you said, it's more than the games, it's the memories they have associated with them. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot as someone who we're sort of trying to walk that line too. So I appreciate your stuff a lot.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're creating a lot of new memories together. Yeah. So it's quite a journey. We're on a Magic School Bus type ride, but yeah, thank you, Darren, for coming on. I don't want to reveal too much, but we're gonna have you on again very soon. Adam, thank you for coming on, and we're really excited to have you back again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And actually, one more things.
Yes.
I wanted to plug retrogamebooks.com. The guy who runs that site, Brian Rigsby. He's an awesome dude. And if you're ever looking for other guests, he was totally be somebody who I bet would be down to do it. I don't know him at all personally. I've just met him via the internet and doing my things. But he carries my books, and he's been awesome to kind of chat with.
We have Brian on the hook for an upcoming episode.
Oh, right.
As well. So,
all right. Yeah. So that's awesome. So he's a great person, and again, I don't know him at all, but the fact that we've kind of like made a little bit of a connection. He's like took the chance to kind of carry my books. Like I just respect him. I appreciate him for doing that. And he's got some of his own original books on his site, and he's doing a really cool thing. So he's a rad dude to kind of shout out and make sure to give some attention to. And because of him, he carried a book called Fight Magic Items by this guy named Aidan Moyer. It's a really, really good book. Like if like the things I was praising that GoldenEye book for about balancing that personal like nostalgic vibe and that personal lens of the memories of these games and the facts of it all, like this is even better than that. Like it dives even further into that about this person's like love and the origins of like the Japanese role-playing game like genre coming to like the West, but like also where this person was in their life and everything. Like it's been just like a really good read and a huge recommendation. So I don't know the guy, I don't know the writer, I don't know anything about him. It's just a great book, and I think you all should go spend your money on it if you like old Japanese RPGs and want a cool personal story kind of talking about the history of those things.
Yeah, that looks like a really cool book, and that's actually an area of games that I'm like more recently gotten into. Yeah, I got to pick that up. So, all right, that's a good plug too. Check out that book. Check out that website. They are cool. I think actually this is a while ago. I don't know the status. I don't want to say anything, but I know Brian asked about something for a book that he was working on a while ago. So, but
maybe
I don't want to blow up the spot on that.
He's been working on some new books, and yes, I think I have also discussed potentially providing providing some contributions to some of his new projects too. So yeah, he does some great stuff. His for nostalgic fans and like his video game map series of books he has are just like really cool like scans from old like Nintendo Powers and strategy guides and like artwork and all that stuff, and like it just the way he like compiles those all together. He's done a few systems and already, and it's worth just checking out and checking out his stuff for sure.
We love maps. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Thanks again, Darren. It was great having you on. We don't got anything in particular to plug. Just check out everything below. All the things, and we've got all the links. We've got Darren's stuff, our stuff. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.